I stood in the rain outside the house I'd built with my own money, watching through the window as my daughter-in-law laughed with another man just 3 days after I buried my son. She'd changed the locks and wiped out my access to every account. I figured my son hadn't died of natural causes. And Vanessa had no idea what was coming. Before telling you how I dismantled her life piece by piece, please tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand your ground against someone who underestimated you. My name is Garrison Ford, and I'm 70 years old. 3 days ago, I buried my only son, Bennett. He was 42. Too young. And as I stood there in the pouring rain, water running down my face mixing with tears I couldn't hold back anymore, I watched the woman he'd married celebrate his death. That's what it was. A celebration. Through that window, I could see Vanessa in a red dress holding a glass of wine in her hand, and she was laughing. The man next to her had his hand on her waist, and she leaned into him like they'd known each other for years. My hands were shaking. Not from the cold but from rage. Rage that made my chest tight and my vision blur at the edges. 2 hours ago, when I came home from the cemetery and walked up to the front door with my key ready. The key didn't work. I'd tried it 3 times, thinking maybe the lock was just sticky from the weather. But no. She had changed it. She had changed the locks. While I was standing over my son's grave grieving, she was busy changing the locks of my home. I knocked. No answer. I'd knocked harder. Nothing. I'd called her phone. It rang inside the house. I could hear it. But she didn't pick up. Then I'd walked around to the side of the house, and that's when I saw them through the window of my living room. Vanessa and a man. He was 40, good-looking, wearing an expensive suit, wedding ring on his finger. They were drinking my son's whiskey. The bottle of Macallan Bennett had saved for his 45th birthday. They'd opened it. I'd pounded on the window. Vanessa looked right at me and she smiled. Not a friendly one. A cold, cruel smile that made my blood run ice-cold. She'd raised her glass to me in a mock toast, and then she'd turned away. That's when I pulled out my phone and called the police. And that's when I'd learned just how thorough Vanessa had been. "Sir," the officer had said when he arrived 20 minutes later. "According to our records, this property belongs to Vanessa Ford. She's filed a complaint that you've been harassing her. She's requested that you leave the premises immediately." "This is my house," I'd said. "I built this house. I paid for every brick, every board, every. Do you have documentation proving ownership?" I'd opened my mouth and closed it again. The deed. Where was the deed? In my filing cabinet. Inside the house. The house I couldn't get into. "I need to get my documents," I'd said. "They're inside. My clothes, my medication, my files." "Ma'am." The officer had knocked on the door. Vanessa had opened it, still in that red dress, still holding that wine glass. "This gentleman says he has personal property inside." "He has nothing inside my house," Vanessa had said sweetly. "He's never lived here. He's my late husband's father, and I'm afraid grief has made him confused. He lives in a retirement home across town. I can give you the address." "That's a lie," I'd shouted. "I've lived here for 3 years, ever since my wife died. Bennett invited me to move in. This is my home." "Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down," the officer had said, his hand moving to his belt. "Officer, I have a restraining order," Vanessa had said, pulling a document from seemingly nowhere. "It was filed this morning. He's not supposed to be within 500 feet of this property. I've been afraid for my safety. Since my husband died, he's been making threats." "What? I never." "Sir, I need you to step back right now." And that's how I'd ended up standing in the rain, watching through the window, a criminal in the eyes of the law on property I'd paid for with 40 years of savings. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with numb fingers. A text from my bank. "Your account has been closed. Thank you for banking with us." Then another text. From my investment company. Per your request, account number 4782 has been liquidated and transferred. I hadn't requested anything. Another buzz. My credit card company. Your card ending in 3847 has been cancelled. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might have a heart attack right there in the driveway. I tried to log into my bank account on my phone. Password incorrect. I tried the password recovery. We don't have an account associated with this email address. She'd wiped me out. Completely. I had $17 in my wallet. That was it. At 7 years old, after a lifetime of work, after building a construction company from nothing, after saving and investing and being careful, I had $17. And I had no idea how she'd done it. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Mr. Ford. A woman's voice. Professional. This is Linda Chen from Westbrook Retirement Community. I'm calling because your monthly payment is overdue, and we need to discuss your continued residence here. What are you talking about? I don't live at Westbrook. Sir, you've been a resident here for 6 months. And frankly, we've been concerned about your confusion. You keep insisting you live somewhere else, but this is your home. Now, about the payment. I've never lived there. I've never even been to Westbrook. Mr. Ford, I have your signed contract right here. And your daughter-in-law, Mrs. Vanessa Ford, is listed as your emergency contact and medical power of attorney. She's been very concerned about your declining mental state. Perhaps we should schedule a meeting with her and our medical director to discuss. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Medical power of attorney? Signed contract? What the hell was happening? I tried to call my lawyer, the one who'd handled my business affairs for 20 years. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a message, trying to keep my voice steady. Richard, it's Garrison. I need you to call me immediately. It's an emergency. I tried to think. I needed to understand what was happening. I needed to figure out how Vanessa had done all this. But first, I needed to get out of this rain before I caught pneumonia. I walked back to my truck, climbed in, and just sat there with the heater running. Through the windshield, I could still see that window, still see Vanessa laughing. The man had his arm around her shoulders now. That's when something clicked in my mind. Something Bennett had said, maybe 3 weeks ago. We'd been having coffee in the kitchen, just the two of us. Vanessa had been out, supposedly having lunch with friends. Dad, Bennett had said, staring into his coffee cup, can I ask you something? Anything, son. If you found out something about someone you loved, something that changed everything you thought you knew about them, would you want to know? Even if it destroyed you. I'd looked at him then, really looked at him. He'd seemed tired. More than tired. Exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he'd lost weight. What's going on, Bennett? He'd shaken his head. Nothing. Never mind. Forget I said anything. But he hadn't looked at me when he said it. My son, who'd never been able to lie to me, couldn't meet my eyes. Is it Vanessa? I'd asked. He'd flinched. Actually flinched. I said forget it, Dad. That had been 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks later, Bennett had called me at work. I'd been going over plans for a new development. I remembered because I'd been annoyed at the interruption. Dad, I need to talk to you. Tonight. Can you meet me at O'Malley's? Can't it wait? I'm in the middle of... No. It can't wait. 6 o'clock. Please. There had been something in his voice. Desperation, maybe. Or fear. I should have dropped everything right then. I should have gone to him immediately. But I didn't. Okay, I'd said. 6 o'clock. At 5:30, Vanessa had called me. Garrison? Thank God. Bennett's had some kind of episode. We're at County General. Can you come? I'd driven 90 miles an hour to that hospital. I'd run through the emergency room doors ready to fight God himself to save my boy. But I was too late. "I'm sorry," the doctor had said. "We did everything we could. It was a massive stroke. Very sudden. He was likely unconscious within seconds." "But he's 42, I'd said stupidly, as if the doctor had made a mistake. "He's healthy. He runs marathons." Sometimes these things happen without warning. A congenital weakness in a blood vessel, high blood pressure we didn't know about, stress. "I'm very sorry for your loss." Vanessa had been crying. I remembered that. She'd been sobbing in the corner of the room, and I'd actually gone to comfort her. I'd put my arm around her shoulders, and she'd buried her face in my chest. "He was fine this morning," she'd said between sobs. "We had breakfast together. He was fine." But now, sitting in my truck in the rain, I remembered something else. When she'd pulled back from me, just for a second before she'd buried her face again, I'd seen her eyes. They'd been dry. She hadn't been crying at all. She'd been making crying sounds, but there were no tears. I'd been so deep in my own grief I hadn't noticed. My phone buzzed again. Another text. This one from a number I didn't recognize. "You have 24 hours to remove your vehicle from this property, or it will be towed and you will be charged." I looked back at the house. Vanessa was in the window now, phone in her hand. She was looking right at me. And she was smiling. I started the truck and backed out of the driveway. I didn't know where I was going. I had nowhere to go. But I couldn't stay there, watching her celebrate my son's death. I drove aimlessly for a while, trying to think, trying to plan. But my mind kept circling back to one question. How had she done all this? How had she gotten access to my accounts? How had she filed legal documents in my name? How had she made me, a man who'd lived independently for 70 years, suddenly appear to be an incompetent old fool living in a retirement home? I needed help. But who could I call? Richard, my lawyer, hadn't called back. Most of my old friends from the construction business were gone now, dead or moved away. My wife's family had never been close to me. I was alone. That's what Vanessa was counting on. She thought I was just a grieving old man with no resources and no fight left in him. She was wrong. I pulled into a gas station, filled up my truck with 10 of my $17, and bought a cup of coffee with 2 more. That left me with $5 to my name. Inside the gas station, I sat at a small table and forced myself to think clearly. I'd built a company from nothing. I'd survived the recession of '08. I'd lost my wife and kept going. I was not going to let Vanessa destroy me. First, I needed information. I needed to understand what she'd done and how she'd done it. Second, I needed resources. Money, legal help, someone who could fight back. Third, I needed evidence. If Vanessa had done something illegal, and I was damn sure she had, I needed proof. I pulled out my phone and did something I'd never thought I'd do. I searched for private investigators in Pennsylvania. There were dozens. I clicked on a few websites, but they all looked the same. Stock photos of serious-looking people in suits, promises of discretion and professionalism, prices I couldn't afford anymore. Then I found one that was different. The website was simple, almost plain. No stock photos. Just a name, James Carver, Private Investigations. And a phone number. Something about the simplicity of it made me trust it. Or maybe I was just desperate. I called the number. Carver. A man's voice, rough like he'd been smoking for 40 years. "Mr. Carver, my name is Garrison Ford. I need help." That's generally why people call. What kind of help? "I think my daughter-in-law killed my son. And now she's stolen everything I have." There was a pause. That's a hell of a first sentence. Keep talking. So I did. I told him everything. The funeral, the locked house, the man in the window, the missing money, the fake retirement home, all of it. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Ford, I'm going to be straight with you." What you're describing sounds like a comprehensive identity theft and fraud operation. It takes planning. It takes time. And it takes help. Your daughter-in-law didn't do this alone. Can you help me? Maybe. Probably. But it's going to cost money, and from what you just told me, you don't have any. I have $5. He laughed, but it wasn't mean. Well, that's honest at least. Look, I tell you what. Come to my office tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. We'll talk more. I'll look into a few things tonight, see if this is even workable. If it is, we'll figure out payment. If it's not, at least you'll know. Where's your office? He gave me an address in downtown Pittsburgh, about an hour from where I was. Mr. Carver? Why are you willing to help me when you don't even know if I can pay? Another pause. Let's just say I know what it's like when someone powerful tries to erase you. 8 a.m., Mr. Ford. Don't be late. He hung up. I sat there with my cold coffee, feeling something I hadn't felt since I'd seen Vanessa through that window. Hope. But hope wasn't going to get me through tonight. I needed a place to sleep. I looked at my phone. I could sleep in the truck, I supposed. It wouldn't be comfortable, but I'd done it before on construction sites. Then I remembered. Danny O'Brien. An old friend from my construction days. We'd lost touch over the years, but last I heard, he was still around. Living in a small apartment near the river. I found his number in my contacts, surprised it was still there. I called. It rang 4 times, and I was about to hang up when he answered. Yeah. Danny, it's Garrison Ford. Garrison. Jesus, how long has it been? 5 years. How are you doing? I heard about Bennett. I'm so sorry, man. I wanted to come to the funeral, but I've been laid up with this damn hip. Danny, I need a favor. A big one. I told him. Not everything, but enough. I needed a place to stay for the night. Maybe a few nights. Say no more, Danny said. You remember where I live? Same place. Come on over. I got a couch with your name on it. The relief was almost painful. Thank you, Danny. Hey, you gave me work when nobody else would. When I was drinking myself to death, you were the only contractor who'd take a chance on me. Far as I'm concerned, you can stay as long as you need. I drove to Danny's apartment. It was in one of the older buildings by the river, the kind that had probably been nice 50 years ago but now was just hanging on. But when Danny opened the door, his face lit up like Christmas. Get in here, you old bastard, he said, pulling me into a hug. Danny's apartment was small but clean. 1 bedroom, a living room with a couch that had seen better days, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. But it was warm, and it was safe, and right then that was all I needed. You hungry? Danny asked. I got some leftover pasta. Not fancy, but it's food. We ate together, and for the first time in 3 days, I felt almost normal. Danny told me about his hip replacement, about his daughter who'd moved to California, about his grandson who was starting college. What about you? He asked finally. You want to tell me what's really going on? So I did. I told him everything. And as I talked, I watched Danny's face go from concerned to angry to furious. That bitch, he said when I finished. Sorry, I know she's your daughter-in-law, but that's what she is. A stone-cold bitch. I'm meeting with a private investigator tomorrow. Good. What do you need from me? Just the couch for a few days. And maybe, if you can spare it, $20 for gas. Danny stood up, went to his bedroom, and came back with a coffee can. He opened it and pulled out a wad of bills. I got about $300 here, he said. It's my emergency fund. Take it. Danny, I can't. You can and you will. You helped me when I needed it. Now I'm helping you. That's what friends do. I took the money. I didn't want to, but I needed it. I'll pay you back. Every cent. I know you will. Now get some sleep. You look like you're about to fall over. I lay on Danny's couch that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the old buildings settling around me. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vanessa in that red dress, raising her glass to me. But I also saw Bennett. Not as he'd been in the hospital, pale and still, but as he'd been as a kid. 7 years old, maybe, covered in dirt from helping me on a job site. He'd insisted on carrying boards that were twice his size, determined to help his old man. "I'm going to build houses just like you, Dad," he'd said. And he had. He'd gone to school for architecture, worked for a firm in the city, designed beautiful buildings. He'd made me so proud. And now he was gone. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because the next thing I knew, Danny was shaking my shoulder. "It's 7, he said. I made coffee." I sat up, my back screaming in protest. Getting old is not for the weak. I accepted the coffee gratefully and checked my phone. Nothing from my lawyer. But there was an email. From Vanessa. My blood ran cold as I opened it. "Garrison," it read. "I know yesterday was difficult, and I apologize for the confusion. Bennett's death has been hard on all of us. However, I must insist that you respect my grief and my privacy. The restraining order is for your own good as much as mine. Your recent behavior has been concerning, and I think it's best if we have some distance while we both process this loss. Bennett's will is being read next week. You'll be notified of the time and place. Until then, please do not attempt to contact me or come to the property. Regards, Vanessa." I read it twice. It was so calm, so reasonable. Anyone reading it would think she was the victim here, dealing with a difficult old man. That's when I understood. She was building a narrative. She was creating a paper trail that made me look unstable, confused, possibly dangerous. So that when I tried to fight back, nobody would believe me. She was smart. I had to give her that. But I was smarter. At 7:30, I said goodbye to Danny and drove to downtown Pittsburgh. James Carver's office was in a building that had probably been fancy in the 1950s but now looked tired. 4th floor, no elevator. I climbed the stairs slowly, my knees protesting every step. The door said, J. Carver, Private Investigations, in plain letters. I knocked. "It's open." I walked into a small office that was nothing like I'd expected. No dramatic shadows, no Venetian blinds casting noir-style lines across the walls. Just a desk, 2 chairs, filing cabinets, and a man who looked like he'd been rode hard and put away wet. James Carver was maybe 55, with gray hair that needed a cut and a face that had seen some living. But his eyes were sharp. Very sharp. "Mr. Ford. Sit." I sat. He pushed a folder across the desk. "I did some digging last night. Your daughter-in-law is a piece of work." I opened the folder. Inside were printouts, bank statements, legal documents, photographs. "How did you get all this?" "Don't ask questions you don't want answered. Look at page 3. I flipped to page 3. It was a photograph of Vanessa with the man I'd seen through the window. They were at a restaurant, sitting close, his hand covering hers on the table. "Who is he?" "Marcus Dalton. He's a lawyer. Estate planning, specifically. Been practicing for 15 years. Married, 2 kids. Also, interesting timing here, he filed his own divorce papers 4 days ago. 4 days ago. The day after Bennett died. Keep looking." The next page was a bank statement. It showed a transfer of $750,000 from an account in Bennett's name to an account in Vanessa's name. The date of the transfer was 2 weeks before Bennett died. "That's not possible," I said. "Bennett wouldn't have transferred that kind of money without telling me." "You're right. He didn't. Look at the signature authorization." I looked. The signature looked like Bennett's, but something was off about it. Too perfect, maybe. Too careful. "It's forged. I'd bet money on it. But proving it? That's harder." Next page. The next document made my chest tight. It was a power of attorney form, giving Vanessa complete control over Bennett's finances and medical decisions. Dated 6 months ago. Bennett never signed this, I said. He would have told me. Maybe. Maybe not. But look at the witness signature. I looked. The witness was Marcus Dalton. They've been planning this for at least 6 months, Carver said. Probably longer. They've been moving pieces into position, getting everything ready. For what? Carver leaned back in his chair. Best guess? They wanted Bennett's money. He was worth, what, $3 million? About that. The house, his investments, his life insurance. Right. So they seduce him, marry him, wait a respectable amount of time, and then they make their move. But there's a problem. You. Me. You're a witness. You know Bennett. You know his habits, his health, his state of mind. If they just kill him outright, you're going to ask questions. So they need to discredit you first. Make you look incompetent. Make you look like your memory can't be trusted. The retirement home. Exactly. They create a paper trail showing you've been living in a facility for months, that you've been confused, that you need supervision. Then when Bennett dies and you start asking questions, nobody believes you. You're just a sad old man who can't accept reality. I felt sick. And the stroke. Carver's face went hard. That's where it gets interesting. I pulled Bennett's medical records from the hospital. Took some creative maneuvering, but I got them. The doctor's notes say Vanessa reported Bennett collapsed around 4 p.m. Ambulance arrived at 4:20. But here's the thing. The medical examiner estimates, based on the damage to his brain, that Bennett had his stroke around 2 p.m. Maybe earlier. She waited, I said slowly. She let him lie there for hours before calling for help. That's my read. She probably figured if she waited long enough, the damage would be too severe. Stroke victims have a window. The faster they get treatment, the better their chances. She made sure that window closed. That's murder. That's going to be damn hard to prove. Her lawyer will say she didn't realize how serious it was, that she thought he was just sleeping or had a headache. Without a witness, without a confession, it's all circumstantial. I stared at the papers in front of me. My son. My boy. She'd let him die. But, Carver continued, we don't need to prove murder. We just need to prove fraud. And that, Mr. Ford, we can do. How? First, we're going to document everything she's done. Every forged signature, every illegal transfer, every piece of identity theft. Then we're going to quietly gather evidence. We don't tip our hand. We don't confront her. We let her think she's won. I don't understand. She's going to make mistakes. She's gotten away with it so far, so she's confident. Overconfident. And overconfident people get sloppy. We wait for her to slip up, and then we nail her. How long? Could be a week. Could be a month. But Mr. Ford, you need to understand something. If we do this, if we really go after her, it's going to get ugly. She's going to fight back. She's going to try to hurt you. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Bennett. About watching him grow up, teaching him how to swing a hammer, walking him down the aisle at his wedding. About the last 3 years, living in the same house, having coffee together every morning. I thought about him lying on the floor, having a stroke, while Vanessa sat in another room and checked her watch, waiting for enough time to pass. I'm prepared, I said. Okay then. Let's talk about payment. My rate is... I have $300. That's it. That's all I have in the world. Carver was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who saw an opportunity. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to give me $100 now as a retainer. The rest of my fee we'll take out of whatever we recover from Vanessa. If we don't recover anything, you don't owe me anything more. Why would you do that? Because I really don't like it when someone thinks they can get away with murder. And because I'm good at what I do, and I know we're going to win. so I'll get paid. Just later. I handed him $100. He pulled out a contract, we both signed it, and just like that I had an ally. Now, Carver said, I need you to do exactly what I tell you. First, you're going to comply with that restraining order. You're not going to go near Vanessa or the house. You're not going to call her, email her, or try to contact her in any way. But I know it's hard. But we need her to think she's safe. We need her to think you're beaten. Second, you're going to document everything. Every interaction, every phone call, every text. Write it down, save it, send me copies. Third, you're going to live your life as normally as possible. Don't do anything that makes you look crazy or dangerous, because she's going to be watching. Where am I supposed to live? You got a friend's couch? For now. Then that's where you live. For now. It's not forever, Mr. Ford. Just until we're ready to make our move. I left Carver's office feeling better than I had in days. I had a plan. I had help. I wasn't alone anymore. My phone rang as I was walking to my truck. Richard, my lawyer, finally calling back. Garrison, I'm so sorry. I've been in court all week and just got your message. What's the emergency? I told him. Not everything, but enough. The locked house, the missing money, the restraining order. Jesus Christ, he said when I finished. Garrison, this is bad. Really bad. I need you to come to my office right away. We need to. Richard, did you file any paperwork for me recently? Anything to do with a retirement home or medical power of attorney? What? No. Why would I? Someone filed documents in my name. Forged my signature. There was a long silence. Garrison, if what you're telling me is true, this is identity theft on a massive scale. We need to file a police report immediately. We need to. I'm handling it. What does that mean? It means I have help. I need you to do something for me, though. I need you to find out everything you can about Bennett's will. Who has it, what it says, when it's being read. Vanessa's lawyer would have that information. Marcus Dalton? I don't know who her lawyer is, but I can find out. Garrison, please tell me you're not planning to do anything stupid. I'm planning to get justice for my son. That's all. I hung up before he could argue. Over the next week, I did exactly what Carver had told me to do. I stayed away from the house. I didn't contact Vanessa. I lived on Danny's couch and documented everything. And I watched. Carver sent me updates every few days. Photographs of Vanessa and Marcus together. Bank records showing more transfers. Cell phone records showing hundreds of calls between them going back almost a year. They'd been planning this for a long time. On day 8, something interesting happened. Carver called me, and I could hear excitement in his voice. We got something. Vanessa just made a big purchase. Very big. What kind of purchase? A plane ticket. To the Cayman Islands. Leaving 2 days after the will reading. She's running. She's running. Which means she's planning to grab whatever she can from the will and disappear. Probably to one of those countries that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. What do? We let her. We let her think she's getting away with it. And then we spring the trap. What trap? The will reading. I guarantee you Marcus has written that will in a way that gives Vanessa everything. Or at least, he thinks he has. But here's the thing about estate law. It's complicated. There are a lot of ways to challenge a will. And I'm betting Marcus, for all his expertise in estate planning, doesn't know about one very important detail. What detail? I'm going to need you to think very carefully. The house that Bennett lived in, that Vanessa is currently occupying. Who owns it? I do. I bought the land 30 years ago, built the house myself. When Bennett got married, I let him and Vanessa live there, but I never transferred the deed. You never transferred the deed, Carver repeated slowly. Mr. Ford, Does Vanessa know that? I thought back. Had I ever told her? Had Bennett? I don't think so, I said. Bennett might not have even known. We never talked about it. And the deed, where is it? In a safe deposit box at First National Bank, along with the title to the truck and some other important papers. Have you checked recently to make sure it's still there? My blood ran cold. No. Go. Right now. Go check. If that deed is gone, we've got a problem. If it's still there, we've got a weapon. I drove to the bank. My hands were shaking as I signed in and asked to access my safe deposit box. The clerk checked her computer and frowned. Mr. Ford, I'm showing that this box was accessed 3 weeks ago. By who? By you, sir. According to our records, you came in with your daughter-in-law and accessed the box together. I've never brought my daughter-in-law here. Sir, I have your signature right here. She showed me a form. My signature was on it. Next to it was Vanessa's signature. Can you pull up the security footage from that day? I'm not authorized to. Please. I think my identity was stolen. She looked uncertain, but she called her manager. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a small office watching grainy security footage from 3 weeks ago. And there I was, walking into the bank with Vanessa. Except it wasn't me. It was someone who looked like me from a distance. Similar build, similar clothes. A hat covering most of his face. Walking with a slight limp, the way I do. That's not me, I said. The manager looked uncomfortable. Mr. Ford, if you're claiming fraud. I'm claiming fraud. I want a police report filed. Now. But even as I said it, I knew how it would look. A confused old man claiming he didn't do something he clearly did. With a signature that matched, security footage showing his face, or enough of it anyway. They'd thought of everything. I went back to the safe deposit box. The deed to the house was gone. So was the title to my truck. So were the stock certificates I'd had since the 1990s. Everything of value, gone. I called Carver from the parking lot. They took it, I said. All of it. Shit. Okay. Okay, this is bad, but it's not fatal. We just need to prove the deed was stolen. We can get copies from the county recorder's office. We can. Will that hold up in court? I don't know, he admitted. But it's all we've got. Look, the will reading is in 2 days. I want you there. I want you calm, quiet, and I want you to let me do the talking. Can you do that? I can do that. Good. In the meantime, I'm going to keep digging. There's got to be something we can use. I spent those 2 days in a kind of fog. I barely slept. I barely ate. Danny tried to get me to talk, but I couldn't. All I could think about was Vanessa, sitting in that house, sleeping in that bed, drinking my son's whiskey and planning her escape. The morning of the will reading, I put on my best suit. It was old, a little tight around the middle, but it was clean and pressed. I wanted to look respectable. I wanted to look like a man who deserved to be taken seriously. Carver picked me up at 9. We drove to Marcus Dalton's law office in silence. Remember, Carver said as we pulled into the parking lot. Stay calm. Let me handle this. I'll be calm. I mean it, Garrison. She's going to try to provoke you. She wants you to lose your temper, make a scene. Don't give her the satisfaction. We walked into the building together. The receptionist directed us to a conference room on the 3rd floor. When we walked in, Vanessa was already there, sitting at the head of the table like a queen on her throne. She'd dyed her hair. It was platinum blonde now, styled in soft waves. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than I'd spent on clothes in the last 5 years. Diamonds sparkled at her ears and throat. She looked like a widow. A beautiful, grieving widow. Next to her sat Marcus Dalton. He stood when we entered, extending his hand. Mr. Ford. I'm Marcus Dalton, Mrs. Ford's attorney. Thank you for coming. I didn't shake his hand. I sat down across from Vanessa. She met my eyes and smiled. "Hello, Garrison," she said sweetly. "How have you been?" "Let's just get this over with," I said. Marcus opened a folder. "Yes, well. We're here to read the last will and testament of Bennett James Ford, deceased. Before we begin, I should note that this will was executed 6 months ago, properly witnessed, and filed with the court. Mr. Ford was of sound mind and body at the time of signing. 6 months ago. The same time as the power of attorney." Marcus began to read. It was all legal language at first, the usual declarations about being of sound mind and revoking all previous wills. Then he got to the good part. "To my father, Garrison Ford, I leave the sum of $1, in recognition of his care during my life. $1. The remainder of my estate, including all real property, financial accounts, investments, and personal property, I leave to my beloved wife, Vanessa Ford." I sat very still. Across from me, Vanessa was trying not to smile. "Additionally," Marcus continued, "I direct that my wife be granted sole custody of my son, Ethan Ford, and that any attempts by other family members to seek custody or visitation be legally contested." My grandson. She was going to take my grandson too. Carver put a hand on my arm. "A warning. Are there any questions?" Marcus asked. "Yes," Carver said. "I have several. First, can you provide documentation that Bennett Ford was properly counseled about the implications of this will, particularly the decision to essentially disinherit his father?" "I counseled him myself," Marcus said smoothly. "He was quite clear about his wishes." "I'm sure he was." "Second question. The house that is mentioned as part of the estate. Can you provide the deed?" Marcus pulled out a document. "Right here." "That deed is a forgery," I said. "Mr. Ford," Marcus said, "I understand you're upset, but accusations like that are serious. This deed has been properly filed with the county. It shows the property was transferred to Bennett Ford 8 years ago." "That's impossible. I never transferred that property. Do you have documentation proving otherwise?" "I didn't. Not anymore." Vanessa spoke for the first time. "Garrison, I know this is hard, but Bennett was very clear. He felt that you'd had a good life, that you'd been successful, and that you didn't need his money. He wanted to make sure Ethan and I were taken care of." "Where is Ethan?" I asked. "Where's my grandson?" "He's with friends. I thought it would be better if he wasn't here for this." "I want to see him." "That's not possible. The restraining order." "I want to see my grandson." "Mr. Ford," Marcus said sharply, "you need to calm down. You're violating." "Let him speak." A new voice. We all turned. A woman had entered the conference room. She was maybe 60, wearing a simple gray suit, carrying a briefcase. She had the kind of face that had seen everything and wasn't impressed by any of it. "Who are you?" Marcus demanded. "Judge Patricia Winters. Family Court. And I have some questions about this will." Marcus's face went pale. "Your Honor, I wasn't informed that you would be attending this reading." "No, you weren't. I was contacted by Mr. Carver here, who raised some concerning issues regarding the welfare of a minor child. Specifically, Ethan Ford. Now, Mrs. Ford, I'd like to know where your son is." Vanessa's smile had disappeared. "He's with friends." "Like I said." "What friends? I don't see how that's relevant." "I'll decide what's relevant." "What friends, Mrs. Ford?" "The Hendersons. They live down the street." Judge Winters pulled out her phone, made a call. "This is Judge Winters. I need a welfare check at—" She looked at Marcus. "What's the Hendersons' address?" Marcus looked at Vanessa. Vanessa looked trapped. "Mrs. Ford doesn't seem to know where her son is," Judge Winters said into the phone. "Run a trace on a minor, Ethan Ford, age 7. I want to know where he is within the hour." She hung up and looked at Vanessa. Let's start over. Where is your son? He's safe, Vanessa said. That's all you need to know. That's not how this works. Mr. Carver has raised concerns about your fitness as a parent. Specifically, he's provided evidence that you may have been involved in your husband's death, that you've committed fraud and identity theft against your father-in-law, and that you're planning to flee the country with your son to avoid prosecution. That's ridiculous, Vanessa said, but her voice was shaking now. Is it? Because I have here a plane ticket in your name. To Grand Cayman. Leaving tomorrow. One way. And a second ticket for Ethan. That's a vacation. We need time to grieve. A vacation that you booked the day after your husband died. Before his funeral. That's quite the hurry to grieve, Mrs. Ford. Marcus stood up. Your Honor, with all due respect, this is highly irregular. You can't just barge into a will reading and start making accusations. I can when there's concern about a child's welfare. And Mr. Dalton, while we're on the subject of irregular, let's talk about your relationship with Mrs. Ford. How long have you two been romantically involved? I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because I have phone records showing over 500 calls between your personal cell phone and hers over the past year. I have credit card receipts showing dinners, hotel rooms, gifts. I have photographs. Should I continue? Marcus sat down. Judge Winters turned to me. Mr. Ford, do you have concerns about your grandson's safety? Yes, I said. I think she's going to disappear with him. On what basis? Carver spoke up. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Ford has been systematically stealing from Mr. Ford, including access to his bank accounts, his property deeds, and his identity. We believe she's been planning to flee with her son and the assets she's stolen. Prove it, Vanessa hissed. Carver smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Gladly. He opened his briefcase and started laying out documents. Bank statements. Transfer records. Forged signatures. Photographs of Vanessa and Marcus together. This is circumstantial, Marcus said. None of this proves. How about this? Carver pulled out another document. This is Bennett Ford's medical file from the hospital. According to the attending physician, Mrs. Ford reported that her husband collapsed around 4 p.m. But according to the medical examiner's analysis of his brain damage, the stroke occurred closer to 2 p.m. That's a 2-hour delay in calling for help. 2 hours that could have saved his life. I didn't realize how serious it was, Vanessa said. But her voice was weak now. No, because according to your own statement to the police, Bennett told you he was having the worst headache of his life, that his vision was blurry, and that his left arm was numb. Those are classic stroke symptoms. Any reasonable person would call 911 immediately. But you didn't. You waited. Why did you wait, Mrs. Ford? I want a lawyer, Vanessa said. You have one, Judge Winters said, nodding at Marcus. Though I suspect he's going to be needing one himself shortly. Mr. Dalton, did you prepare this will? Marcus didn't answer. Did you prepare this will while engaging in a romantic relationship with the primary beneficiary? Still no answer. Did you counsel Bennett Ford to essentially disinherit his father, who had provided him with housing and financial support? I want to invoke my Fifth Amendment rights, Marcus said. Too late for that, counsel. You've already entered this will into probate. You're already on record as the attorney of record. And now I have serious questions about whether this will was prepared under duress, whether Bennett Ford was properly represented, and whether there was undue influence involved. She turned to me. Mr. Ford, did your son ever indicate to you that he intended to change his will? No, Your Honor. Never. Did he ever express dissatisfaction with you or indicate he didn't want you to inherit? No, Your Honor. The opposite. We had a good relationship. But I have evidence, Marcus interjected, that Mr. Ford has been suffering from dementia, that he's been living in a retirement home, that his memory can't be trusted. Show me. Marcus pulled out documents. The forms from Westbrook Retirement Community. Signed statements from doctors I'd never met. Medical records showing appointments I'd never attended. This is all fake, I said. I've never been to any of these places. I've never seen any of these doctors. Judge Winters looked at the documents carefully. Mr. Carver, do you have anything to contradict this? I do. Carver pulled out his phone. I tracked down the actual doctor listed on these forms. Dr. Ellen Vasquez. She says she's never met Garrison Ford. She says her signature was forged. She's willing to testify. She's lying, Vanessa said desperately. Is she? Or are you? Because we can subpoena Westbrook, get their security footage, verify whether Mr. Ford has ever actually been there. We can check with his real doctor, get his actual medical records. We can tear apart every piece of this fraud, Mrs. Ford. And we will. Vanessa looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the floor. Judge Winters stood up. All right. Here's what's going to happen. This will is being contested. There will be a full investigation into the circumstances of its creation. Mrs. Ford, you're not leaving the country. I'm issuing an order prohibiting you from traveling outside the continental United States. I'm also ordering that Ethan be located immediately, and once he's found, we'll have a hearing to determine custody arrangements. You can't do this, Vanessa said. I can and I am. Bailiff. 2 men entered the room. They weren't police exactly, but they had that look. Mrs. Ford is not to be allowed to leave the state. Make sure she understands that. Vanessa's face had gone from confident to panicked. This is illegal. You can't just... I'm a judge, Mrs. Ford. I can do quite a lot. Now, I suggest you cooperate, because right now you're looking at identity theft, fraud, possibly even criminal negligence in your husband's death. Your cooperation might be the only thing that keeps you out of prison. The bailiffs escorted Vanessa out. She didn't look at me as she left. Marcus Dalton was still sitting at the table, his head in his hands. Mr. Dalton, Judge Winters said, you're going to want to get your own attorney. A good one. The state bar is going to be very interested in your conduct. Marcus left without a word. And then it was just me, Carver, and Judge Winters. Thank you, I said. I don't know how to thank you enough. Thank Mr. Carver. He's the one who brought this to my attention. Though I have to say, Mr. Ford, in all my years on the bench, I've rarely seen fraud this comprehensive. What happens now? Now we find your grandson. We make sure he's safe. Then we sort out the will, sort out your property, and figure out what criminal charges to file against Mrs. Ford and Mr. Dalton. It's going to take time. I have time, I said. I've got nothing but time. Judge Winters left, promising to call as soon as they located Ethan. I sat in the conference room with Carver, trying to process what had just happened. You knew, I said. You knew the judge would come. I suspected. I've worked with Judge Winters before. She takes a very dim view of people who exploit the elderly or endanger children. I sent her everything we had, and she agreed there was enough concern to warrant her involvement. Is Ethan really in danger? I think Vanessa was planning to disappear with him. Whether that constitutes danger depends on your definition. But yes, I think she would have taken him somewhere we'd never find him. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Mr. Ford? This is Officer Martinez with Child Protective Services. We've located Ethan. He's safe. He was at a house in New Jersey, staying with people he didn't know. They claim Mrs. Ford paid them to watch him for a few days. Can I see him? Not yet. We need to do an evaluation first, make sure he's okay. But soon. Maybe tomorrow. I hung up and put my head in my hands. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I was too tired, too wrung out. It's over, Carver said. You won. Bennett's still dead. Yeah, he is. And I'm sorry for that. But at least now his death will mean something. Vanessa will pay for what she did. And your grandson will be safe. We left the law office together. Outside, The sun was shining. It felt wrong somehow. Like the weather should match how I felt inside. But the world doesn't work that way. What do I owe you? I asked. Let's wait until we see how much we recover from Vanessa. Could be a lot. Could be nothing. Either way, we'll figure it out. He drove me back to Danny's apartment. Danny was waiting on the steps, and when he saw my face, he knew. You got her. We got her. Danny hooped and pulled me into a hug. Tell me everything. So I did. We sat in his small living room, and I told him the whole story. About the will reading, about Judge Winters, about finding Ethan. And as I talked, something loosened in my chest. Something that had been tight and painful since the day Bennett died. It wasn't grief. That would be with me forever. But it was the beginning of something else. Justice, maybe. Or peace. Over the next few weeks, things slowly came together. Judge Winters ordered a full investigation into Bennett's death. The medical examiner ruled it a homicide by negligence. Vanessa was arrested and charged with criminally negligent homicide, identity theft, fraud, and about a dozen other charges. Marcus Dalton was disbarred. He lost his law license, his firm, his reputation. His wife divorced him and got custody of their kids. Last I heard, he was working as a paralegal somewhere, trying to rebuild his life. The will was thrown out. It turned out Bennett had made a will years earlier, before he'd even met Vanessa, leaving everything to me in trust for any children he might have. That will was deemed valid. And the house? It turned out my missing deed didn't matter. The county records showed I'd owned that land for 30 years. Vanessa's forged deed was exposed as a fraud. The house was mine, and everything in it. I sold it. I couldn't live there, not after everything that had happened. Too many ghosts. But I bought a new house. Smaller, cozier, with a backyard perfect for a 7-year-old boy. Because I got custody of Ethan. It wasn't easy. There were hearings, evaluations, home visits. Social workers who wanted to know if a 70-year-old man could really raise a young boy. But I had help. Danny testified on my behalf. So did Carver. So did old friends from the construction business who vouched for my character. And in the end, the judge decided that Ethan belonged with family. With someone who loved him and would keep him safe. The first night Ethan stayed with me in the new house, we sat on the floor of his room and assembled a bed together. He was quiet at first, reserved. He'd been through so much, seen so much. His mother arrested, his father dead, his whole world upside down. "Grandpa," he said as we tightened the last bolt. "Yeah, buddy. Is my mom a bad person?" How do you answer that? How do you tell a 7-year-old that his mother let his father die? That she tried to steal everything and run away? Your mom made some very bad choices, I said carefully. She did things that hurt people. But that doesn't mean she didn't love you. Did she love Dad? I don't know. Maybe once she did. But somewhere along the way, she stopped thinking about what was right and started thinking about what she wanted. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I miss Dad." "Me too, buddy. Every single day." "Do you think he knows? That you got the bad people?" "I think he knows. And I think he's proud of you for being so brave." Ethan climbed into his new bed, and I tucked him in. As I turned off the light, he said, "Grandpa, I'm glad I'm staying with you." "Me too, Ethan. Me too." That was 6 months ago. Today, Ethan is thriving. He's in school, making friends, playing soccer. He still has bad days, days when he cries for his dad or asks questions about his mom that I don't know how to answer. But mostly, he's a happy kid. Vanessa's trial starts next month. Her lawyer is trying to work out a plea deal, but the prosecutor isn't interested. Not with the evidence we have. She's looking at 20 years minimum. Sometimes I think about that night in the rain, standing outside the house, watching her laugh with Marcus. I think about how powerless I felt, how completely she'd destroyed my life. And then I look at Ethan, doing his homework at the kitchen table or building Lego spaceships in his room, and I think about how close I came to losing him too. Vanessa thought she'd won. She thought she was smarter than me, faster than me, more ruthless than me. She thought I was just a grieving old man who wouldn't fight back. She was wrong. I did fight back. With everything I had. And I won. Not because I was smarter or faster or more ruthless. But because I had something she didn't have. I had people who cared about me. Danny, who gave me a place to stay. Carver, who believed me and fought for me. Judge Winters, who saw through Vanessa's lies. Richard, my lawyer, who helped untangle the legal mess. And most importantly, I had love. Love for my son, love for my grandson, love strong enough to keep me going when everything else was gone. That's what Vanessa never understood. She thought life was about winning, about taking what you wanted and running before anyone could stop you. But life isn't a game you win. It's a story you live, with people you love, doing your best to leave the world a little better than you found it. Bennett is gone. That hole in my heart will never fully heal. But he left me Ethan, and Ethan is my second chance. A chance to do right by my family. A chance to teach my grandson what his father taught me. That honor matters, that integrity matters, that doing the right thing matters even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Last week, Ethan came home from school with a black eye. Some kid had been bullying a smaller boy, and Ethan had stepped in. The teacher called it fighting. I called it standing up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves. "You're not in trouble," I told him as we sat on the porch with ice on his eye. "But next time, try talking first. Violence should always be the last option." But Grandpa, he was really hurting that kid. What was I supposed to do? "You did the right thing. I'm just saying there are levels. You try talking. Then you try getting an adult. Then, if nothing else works and someone's really in danger, you step in. But you always try the other options first." Is that what you did? With Mom? Yeah, buddy. That's what I did. I tried to do things the right way. I got help. I got proof. And then, when I had no other choice, I fought back. Did you ever think about giving up? I thought about that. About standing in the rain with $17 to my name. About sleeping on Danny's couch. About the nights I couldn't sleep because I was so scared I'd never see Ethan again. Yes, I said honestly. I thought about giving up lots of times. It would have been easier. But then I thought about you. And I thought about your dad. And I knew I couldn't give up. Because you were counting on me. I'm glad you didn't give up. Me too. We sat there together, watching the sun set over our little backyard. And for the first time since Bennett died, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness. Not yet. Maybe never. But peace. The knowledge that I'd done everything I could. That justice had been served. That my grandson was safe. It's enough. This morning, I got a letter from Vanessa. She's allowed to send mail from the county jail where she's awaiting trial. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Garrison," it said, "I know you hate me. I know what I did was wrong. But please, let me see Ethan. He's my son. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I love him. Please don't take him away from me forever." I read it twice, and I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, nothing. I showed it to my lawyer. "What do you think?" "It's your decision," Richard said. "The court has given you full custody. You can allow supervised visits if you want. Or not." I thought about Ethan. About the nightmares he still has sometimes. About how he flinches when someone raises their voice. About the therapist he sees twice a week to deal with the trauma. And I thought about Vanessa, sitting in a cell, losing everything just like she tried to make me lose everything. "No," I said. "Not now. Maybe someday, when he's older. When he can decide for himself. But not now. He needs stability. He needs to heal." Richard nodded. I'll draft a response. Some people might think I'm cruel. That every child deserves to know their mother, regardless of what she's done. But those people haven't watched their grandson wake up screaming from nightmares. Haven't had to explain why mommy isn't coming home. Haven't had to rebuild a child's sense of safety from scratch. Vanessa made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. As for me, I'm rebuilding too. I got my money back, most of it anyway. Some had been spent or hidden where we couldn't find it, but enough was recovered to secure Ethan's future. I put it all in a trust for him, for college and whatever else he needs. I sold my construction company. I don't need the stress anymore, and I want to focus on Ethan. I have enough to live on, enough to make sure he wants for nothing. Danny comes over for dinner twice a week. Carver stops by sometimes too, usually with case files he wants my opinion on. Apparently word got around that I'm good at figuring out when someone's lying. You ever think about doing this professionally? Carver asked last month. I could use a partner. Someone with your instincts. I'm 70 years old. I'm not starting a new career. Why not? You've got another good 20 years in you. Maybe more. I'd laughed, but I've been thinking about it. About having something to do besides watch Ethan and rattle around this house. About using what I learned from this nightmare to help other people. Maybe. For now, I'm focused on being the best grandfather I can be. On making sure Ethan knows he's loved, he's safe, and he can count on me. The trial starts in 3 weeks. I'll have to testify. So will Ethan, though the judge is trying to minimize his involvement. It's going to be hard, reliving all of it. Seeing Vanessa again. But I'll do it. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You protect them. You fight for them. You never give up, even when giving up would be easier. Bennett would be proud, I think. Proud that I didn't let Vanessa win. Proud that I'm taking care of his son. Proud that I stood up and fought back. I hope he's proud. I like to think he's watching somehow, wherever he is. Watching me teach Ethan how to throw a baseball. Watching us build a treehouse in the backyard. Watching us become a family again, scarred and broken but still together. And I like to think he's smiling. Because in the end, love won. Not money, not manipulation, not cruelty. Love. That's the lesson I want Ethan to learn. That's the legacy I want to leave him. That no matter how bad things get, no matter how dark the world seems, love is stronger. Family is stronger. And the people who underestimate that, the people who think they can tear apart a family and get away with it, they're going to learn the hard way, just like Vanessa did. You don't mess with a Ford. And you definitely don't mess with a Ford's grandson. Not while I'm still breathing. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Every day, I sat in that courtroom and listened to the evidence. The forged documents, the stolen money, the phone records, the photographs. The medical examiner's testimony about Bennett's stroke and how Vanessa's delay in calling 911 had killed him. Vanessa sat at the defense table in a plain gray suit, trying to look small and sympathetic. Her lawyer argued that she'd been overwhelmed, in shock, not thinking clearly. That she'd loved Bennett and never meant for him to die. But then the prosecution played a recording. It was a voicemail Vanessa had left for Marcus 2 hours after Bennett's stroke. Before she called 911. Before she called me. Marcus, it's me. It's done. He's upstairs. I think he's dying. I'm going to wait another hour, then call 911. That should be enough time, right? Call me back. I love you. The courtroom went silent. Even Vanessa's lawyer looked shocked. I think he's dying, the prosecutor repeated. I'm going to wait another hour. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is not shock. This is not confusion. This is cold-blooded murder. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, Vanessa was convicted on all counts. Criminally negligent homicide. Identity theft. Fraud. Everything. The judge sentenced her to 25 years. Vanessa didn't cry. She just sat there, staring straight ahead, as they led her away in handcuffs. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just emptiness. Because Bennett was still dead, and no sentence would bring him back. But outside the courthouse, I picked up Ethan. He hadn't come to the trial. I'd made sure of that, and as we drove home he said, "Is it over, Grandpa?" "Yeah, buddy. It's over." "Good. Can we get ice cream?" And that's when I started to cry. Not sad tears. Relief tears. Because my grandson was safe and whole, and thinking about ice cream instead of death and betrayal and all the darkness that had consumed our lives. We got ice cream. 2 scoops each. And we sat in the park, eating too fast and getting brain freezes, and laughing about nothing in particular. That was 2 months ago. Now it's spring. Ethan's baseball team has their first game this weekend. I'm the assistant coach. Danny's coming to watch. So is Carver, who's become an unlikely friend. The treehouse is finished. Ethan and his friends play up there every afternoon after school. I can hear them from the kitchen, laughing and yelling and being kids. Sometimes, when it's quiet, I talk to Bennett. I tell him about Ethan's grades, about the treehouse, about our life. I tell him I'm sorry I couldn't save him. But I promise him I'll take care of his son. I'll make sure Ethan grows up strong and good and kind. I'll make sure he knows his father was a good man who deserved better than what he got. And I'll make sure he knows that family is everything. That you fight for the people you love. That you never ever give up. Because I didn't. When Vanessa thought she'd destroyed me, when she'd taken everything and left me with nothing, I could have given up. I could have accepted defeat and faded away. But I didn't. I stood in the rain outside that house, and I made a decision. I decided to fight. To find help. To gather evidence. To be patient and smart and relentless. And I won. Not because I was special. Not because I was tough. But because I refused to let my son's death be for nothing. I refused to let his killer walk free. I refused to lose my grandson. So if you're reading this, if you're in a situation where someone powerful is trying to destroy you, remember this. You're not helpless. You're not alone. There are people who will help if you ask. There are laws that protect you. There are ways to fight back. It won't be easy. It might take everything you have. But if you're fighting for something that matters, for someone you love, it's worth it. Trust me. I'm living proof. The sun is setting now. Ethan just came inside, covered in dirt from playing in the yard. He's chattering about his day at school, about some girl he likes, about the science project he's working on. And I'm listening. Really listening. Because these moments, these ordinary, beautiful moments, are what life is about. Not revenge, not justice, not winning. Just this. Just love. Just family. Just being present for the people who matter. Vanessa never understood that. She thought happiness came from money, from getting what you wanted, from winning at all costs. But she was wrong. Happiness comes from this. From a 7-year-old boy with dirt on his face telling you about his day. From friends who show up when you need them. From knowing you did the right thing even when it was hard. Bennett's gone. That pain will never fully go away. But he's also here, in every smile on Ethan's face, in every laugh, in every moment of joy. He's here. And so am I. And we're going to be okay. All of us. Let me know in the comments where you have watched it from and what you would have done if you were in my place. If you loved my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It inspires us to share more such stories with you.